Now, let all the weight of the day fall gently away from your shoulders. Let go of the noise of the world you know just for tonight. Take one slow breath in and let it go, slower still. Imagine standing before a great stone temple beside the Nile, warm sand beneath your feet. The sun has just set behind the western hills, and the sky above is turning a deep, soft orange. This is a temple dedicated to Sekhmet, a goddess the ancient Egyptians connected to both illness and healing. Historians know a great deal about places like this, because the Egyptians recorded their daily life carefully, on stone and on papyrus. Tonight, we will use what they recorded to picture a single quiet evening inside these walls. We will not speak of wars or of politics or of dramatic events. We will speak only of ordinary things, herbs, oils, lamps, and the slow, careful work of healing. There is nothing you need to remember, only to breathe slowly and to listen. Let your eyes rest now gently as we step through the temple doors together. Part 1. The Temple and its Healers. Chapter 1. Sekhmet's Arrows. The ancient Egyptians sometimes described illness and plague as arrows sent out by Sekhmet herself. Her priests were tasked not only with treating sickness, but with performing rituals meant to calm her and turn these arrows aside. During the 5th dynasty, priests of Sekhmet were responsible for inspecting the meat offered to the public during religious festivals. Historians consider this one of the earliest recorded recognitions that illness could pass from animals into humans. This practical duty, checking meat for spoilage, sat comfortably alongside more overtly religious responsibilities within the same priesthood. It shows a genuinely early, functional understanding of public health, centuries before the concept was named or studied scientifically elsewhere. The dual meaning of Sekhmet, bringer of plague and guardian against it, made her priesthood uniquely suited to this responsibility. Chapter 2. The Temple of Sekhmet. Sekhmet was one of the most important goddesses in ancient Egyptian religion, worshipped for well over 2,000 years. She was often shown with the head of a lioness and was associated with both plague and protection. The Egyptians believed she could send illness upon the land, and that she alone held the power to take it away again. Because of this, temples dedicated to her were closely connected to the practice of medicine. Priests who served Sekhmet were not only religious figures, they were also trained physicians. Historians refer to them today using the ancient title Wab Sekhmet, meaning a pure or consecrated priest of Sekhmet. This connection between religion and medicine was not unusual in ancient Egypt, where healing and worship were rarely separated. A temple such as this one would have included living quarters, storerooms, gardens, and a room set aside specifically for treating the sick. Its walls were built from stone, thick enough to stay cool even during the hottest hours of the day. Records from across ancient Egypt describe similar temples in cities along the Nile, each one serving its local community. Some of these temples grew quite large over time, while others remained modest structures serving a single town or district. Tonight, we imagine one such temple, quiet now, as the sun lowers itself toward the horizon. Chapter 3: The Architecture of an Egyptian Temple. Egyptian temples followed a recognizable, repeated architectural pattern, refined gradually over many centuries. A large stone gateway called a pylon typically marked the temple's main entrance, its walls often carved with religious scenes. Beyond this lay an open courtyard, accessible to a wider portion of the public than the temple's inner rooms. Further inside stood the hypostyle hall, a wide space filled with tall stone columns supporting a heavy roof. Only priests, and occasionally the pharaoh himself, were permitted to continue beyond this point, into the temple's most sacred inner rooms. The sanctuary, smallest and darkest of all these spaces, housed the god's statue and remained largely hidden from public view. A healing room, such as the one we imagine tonight, would likely have sat somewhat apart from this central religious sequence. This layout, moving from open and public towards small and sacred, shaped how every visitor experienced the temple. Chapter 4: The Nile and the Egyptian Calendar. Egyptian daily life, including temple activity, followed a calendar closely tied to the yearly flooding of the Nile. This flood, arriving predictably each year, divided the calendar into 3 seasons: flooding, growing, and harvest. Temple festivals, agricultural work, and even medical practice followed this same steady, expected rhythm. Priests responsible for astronomy helped track this cycle carefully, ensuring festivals and important dates aligned correctly each year. A temple healer's own sense of time would have been shaped by this same unhurried, predictable natural cycle. This deep connection between river, calendar, and daily life shaped nearly every aspect of ancient Egyptian existence. Chapter 5: Sekhmet's Divine Family. In Egyptian mythology, Sekhmet was closely connected to the city of Memphis, one of ancient Egypt's most important centers. There, she was worshipped alongside Ptah, a creator god, and their son Nefertum, associated with the blue lotus flower itself. This family grouping placed Sekhmet directly beside the very flower so often used in the medicine practiced in her name. Temples honoring this triad of gods existed throughout Egypt, though Memphis remained their primary spiritual home. Ptah himself was regarded as a patron of craftsmen, connecting this divine family to the practical, skilled work carried out within temple workshops. Amenhotep III, a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, commissioned several hundred statues of Sekhmet for his mortuary temple alone. Many of these statues survive today, scattered across museums worldwide, a testament to how seriously her worship was once taken. Historians believe such a vast number of statues reflects genuine, widespread anxiety about disease and equally genuine hope for healing. Chapter 6. Visiting Sekhmet today. Many of Sekhmet's statues remain visible today at the precinct of Mut, within the larger temple complex at Karnak. Visitors can still walk among dozens of these dark granite figures, each one seated calmly, holding an Ankh symbol of life. Other statues, removed over the centuries, now stand in museums across Europe and North America, far from their original temple setting. Egyptologists continue to study these figures, uncovering fresh details about their original placement and religious purpose. Standing before one today, a visitor can still sense something of the calm, watchful presence her ancient priests once described. This continued physical presence connects us directly, across thousands of years, to the temple world we have imagined together tonight. Chapter 7. The priests who were physicians. One of the earliest named physicians in recorded history served in a temple much like this one. His name was Sekhmet, and he lived during Egypt's 5th dynasty, around 2487 BCE. Ancient records credit him with treating a bleeding nose suffered by the king, one of the oldest medical treatments ever recorded by name. Another priest-physician, Shepsiskaf-Fank, held the title chief of physicians of Upper and Lower Egypt. His tomb, discovered in Abusir, shows that he also served as a priest of the god Khnum, closely tied to the House of Life. These men were not separate from temple life. Their medical knowledge was considered part of their religious duty. Historians believe that priests of Sekhmet were among the first professional physicians in recorded history. Their training combined practical observation with religious ritual, a blending the Egyptians saw as entirely natural. A young priest learning this craft would have studied for years before being trusted with patients of his own. He would have learned herbs, oils, bandaging, and the careful words spoken during treatment together as a single practice. This same tradition, priest and physician combined, continued in temples across Egypt for many centuries. Egyptologists consider Sekhmet's case especially significant, since it may represent the very first physician anywhere in the world whose name and treatment were both recorded together. Chapter 8. reading the ancient script again. For many centuries after ancient Egypt's decline, its hieroglyphic writing remained completely unreadable to the outside world. This changed in 1822, when French scholar Jean-François Champollion successfully deciphered the script using the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799, presented the same text in Greek alongside Egyptian hieroglyphic and Demotic script. This breakthrough finally allowed scholars to read medical papyri, temple inscriptions, and tomb records directly in their original words. Without this achievement, everything we now know about figures such as Nai-Ankh-Sekhmet or Peseshet would have remained entirely hidden. Every fact shared tonight ultimately depends on this 19th century breakthrough, connecting us directly to voices silent for thousands of years. Chapter 9. The House of Life. Attached to many Egyptian temples was an institution known as the Pur-Ankh, or House of Life. Here, scribes copied and stored religious texts, and here too, medical knowledge was written down and preserved. The House of Life functioned as a kind of library and school combined, covering medicine alongside astronomy, geography, and history. Papyrus scrolls were kept here, some containing prayers, others containing detailed remedies for illness and injury. A healer training at the temple would have spent time in this quiet room, learning to read the careful, small handwriting of those before him. Scrolls were treated with real care, their edges softened by years of gentle handling. Some of the medical texts found by modern archaeologists likely began as copies made in rooms just like this one. The House of Life ensured that knowledge gathered by one generation of healers was not lost to the next. This is why, thousands of years later, historians can still read remedies written by Egyptian physicians long since gone. The House of Life at major centers such as Memphis and Abydos were especially renowned, drawing scribes and healers from surrounding regions. Chapter 10. The Astronomer Priests and the Calendar. Some temple priests specialized not in medicine, but in tracking the movement of stars across the night sky. Their observations allowed them to maintain Egypt's calendar, essential for both agriculture and religious festival timing. These same priests compiled records of favorable and unfavorable days, guiding decisions about important events. A patient's treatment, or even a healer's own travel, may have been timed according to these carefully kept records. This blending of astronomy and daily practical decision making shows how thoroughly religious knowledge shaped ordinary Egyptian life. Temple record keeping, whether medical, religious, or astronomical, followed the same careful, methodical Egyptian tradition. Chapter 11. Becoming a Healer. Medical knowledge in ancient Egypt was often passed down within families, from father to son, across many generations. A young apprentice might begin his training simply by watching, carrying baskets of herbs, or cleaning tools after use. Over time, he would be taught to recognize plants, to prepare oils, and to apply remedies under close supervision. Egyptian medical texts describe a careful, structured approach: examination, diagnosis, and then treatment. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, one of Egypt's oldest surviving medical texts, follows exactly this structure for each case it describes. Historians have noted that its method is surprisingly close to clinical practice, used by physicians even today. A young healer would have learned to observe a patient carefully before ever reaching for a remedy. Patience, more than any single skill, was considered essential to good medical practice. This slow, careful method of learning shaped generations of temple physicians across ancient Egypt. A student who mastered this careful sequence would eventually be trusted to work largely on his own, though always within the wider structure of the temple. Chapter 12: A Family of Healers. Medical knowledge in ancient Egypt often stayed within a single family across several generations. Peseshet, the female physician mentioned earlier, is believed to have had a son who also practiced medicine. This pattern, medical knowledge passed from parent to child, appears repeatedly throughout Egyptian historical records. A household with one respected healer often produced several more within the same family line. This hereditary structure helped preserve specialized knowledge, since techniques could be demonstrated directly rather than only written down. Temple healers likely fit this same broader pattern, with sons sometimes following fathers into the same sacred profession. Such continuity gave Egyptian medicine a stability that lasted, in recognizable form, for well over 2,000 years. Chapter 13: The Tools of an Egyptian Healer. An Egyptian healer's tools were simple, practical, and suited to careful, repeated use. Small stone mortars were used to grind dried herbs into fine powder. Clay jars held oils and remedies, each one sealed and labeled for easy identification. Wooden spoons, worn smooth through years of use, were used for mixing and measuring. Strips of linen, woven specifically for medical use, were kept ready for wounds or for applying warm remedies. Bronze implements, some quite fine, have been found in tombs belonging to physicians, suggesting specialized surgical tools existed. A small oil lamp would have lit the healer's workspace during the evening hours, when much of this quiet work took place. These tools, though simple by modern standards, reflect a tradition of careful, methodical practice. Archaeologists have recovered many such objects, offering a direct, physical connection to the healers who once used them. Even simple wear patterns on these ancient tools tell researchers something real about the daily habits of the hands that once held them. Chapter 14: Specialists of the Body. The Greek historian Herodotus, visiting Egypt around 450 BCE, observed that Egyptian medicine was highly specialized. He noted that physicians treated only one part of the body, some the eyes, some the teeth, some the stomach, and nothing beyond it. Egyptian records confirm this observation, listing titles such as Doctor of the Eyes and Doctor of the Heart. The general term for a physician was SWNW, appearing in inscriptions dating back to the Old Kingdom. Alongside the SWNW worked the Sow, a practitioner focused on protective magic and amulets, and the Wab, a priest-healer maintaining ritual purity. These three roles, physician, magician, and priest, often overlapped, working together rather than in competition. Historians studying tomb inscriptions have found records of well over 100 named physicians from the Pharaonic period. This degree of organization impressed Herodotus enough that he recorded it carefully in his own writings, centuries after Egypt's Old Kingdom had ended. Chapter 15: Hesira and Peseshet. Among the named physicians of ancient Egypt, two figures stand out for their surviving historical record. Hesira, who lived during the 3rd dynasty, held the title chief of dentists and physicians, the earliest known dentist named in history. His tomb inscriptions describe his high standing at court, reflecting the real respect given to medical knowledge in this period. Peseshet, from a similar era, held a title translated as overseer of female physicians, making her one of history's earliest named female doctors. Her exact duties remain debated among historians, though her title suggests she held real authority over other medical practitioners. These two figures, a dentist and a woman overseeing physicians, show that Egyptian medicine included more variety and structure than is often assumed. Their names, preserved in stone for thousands of years, remind us that individual healers, not only institutions, shaped this ancient tradition. Chapter 16: The Length of Training. Becoming a fully trusted physician in ancient Egypt required many years of sustained, careful training. A young apprentice typically began as a child, spending years simply observing before being allowed to treat anyone directly. Some scholars estimate this training period could extend a decade or more, particularly for those seeking senior temple positions. During this time, a student moved gradually from simple tasks, cleaning tools and preparing ingredients, toward direct patient care. The House of Life supported this long process, offering continued access to texts and experienced teachers throughout a student's training. This unhurried, thorough approach reflects how seriously Egyptian society treated the responsibility of medical practice. By the time a healer began working independently, he carried with him years of genuinely accumulated, well-tested knowledge. Part 2. The Medicine of the Temple. Chapter 17. The Ebers Papyrus. One of the most important sources for understanding Egyptian medicine is the Ebers Papyrus. Dated to around 1550 BCE, during the reign of Amenhotep I, it is over 20 meters long. It contains more than 700 remedies, covering conditions from digestive trouble to pain and anxiety. The scroll takes its name from Georg Ebers, the scholar who acquired it in the 19th century. It is now kept at the University of Leipzig, carefully preserved for continued study. Many of its remedies combine practical ingredients, herbs, oils, and honey, with a short-spoken formula. Historians note that Egyptian medicine rarely separated the practical from the spiritual. The two were simply part of one method. The papyrus describes treatments still recognizable today, remedies for headaches, for coughs, and for restless, sleepless nights. Reading it now, modern researchers are often struck by how detailed and specific these ancient instructions remain. Its sheer scale, over 20 meters of carefully copied text, reflects a genuinely serious, long-term institutional commitment to preserving medical knowledge. Chapter 18. Measuring the remedy. Egyptian medical texts used a precise system of measurement for preparing remedies accurately. The hecat, roughly equivalent to 4.5 liters, served as a base unit for measuring grain, and by extension, medicinal ingredients. Smaller amounts were measured using the hin, 1/10 of a hecat, and the even smaller row, representing 1/320th. This system allowed a healer to record a remedy with real precision, rather than relying on rough estimation alone. Scribes trained in mathematics helped maintain these standards, connecting Egyptian medicine directly to the same numerical skill used in architecture and trade. A temple healer preparing tonight's remedy would likely have measured his oils and herbs using exactly this same careful, standardized system. Chapter 19. How the papyri were found. Many Egyptian medical papyri survived by chance, buried for thousands of years within the dry desert sand. The Ebers Papyrus was reportedly found near the Ramesseum, in Thebes, before eventually reaching Georg Ebers in the 1870s. The Edwin Smith Papyrus was purchased in Luxor in 1862, later translated fully in the 20th century by American Egyptologist James Henry Breasted. The Kahun papyrus was uncovered by archaeologist Flinders Petrie in 1889 at the site of the town of Lahun. Each discovery required years of careful translation, as scholars slowly learned to read the ancient hieratic script involved. This process of recovery and translation continues even now, as researchers occasionally identify new details within already known texts. Without Egypt's dry climate and considerable scholarly patience, this entire body of ancient medical knowledge might easily have been lost. Chapter 20: Blue Lotus, the Flower of Healing. Among the most valued plants in Egyptian medicine was the blue lotus, known today as Nymphea caerulea. It grew in calm, still water, its pale blue petals opening slowly each morning with the rising sun. The Ebers papyrus records blue lotus preparations used for pain, inflammation, and difficulty sleeping. Modern chemical analysis has found that the plant contains compounds called aporphine and nuciferine. These compounds interact with the body in ways that researchers today associate with calm and mild relaxation. In ancient Egypt, blue lotus was prepared as an oil, steeped slowly into wine, or dried for later use. Its image appears often in Egyptian art, held gently in the hands of banquet guests and temple figures alike. A healer preparing this remedy would have worked slowly, aware that its gentle effect depended on patience rather than strength. Petals were often dried carefully, then ground lightly, before being added to warm oil or wine. This same flower, admired for both its beauty and its calming effect, connected Egyptian religion and medicine closely together. Chapter 21: Myrrh and the Scent of Medicine. Myrrh, a fragrant resin gathered from a tree native to parts of Arabia and East Africa, held real importance in Egyptian medicine. The Ebers papyrus lists myrrh as a remedy for headaches, toothaches, backaches, and digestive troubles. It was imported into Egypt through long-established trade routes, arriving as small hardened lumps of golden resin. When burned slowly, it released a warm, sweet smoke, familiar in both temples and healing rooms alike. Egyptian physicians combined myrrh with other ingredients to create pastes, oils, and simple inhaled remedies. Its antiseptic qualities, only understood scientifically much later, may explain why it appeared so often in wound care. Myrrh also played a central role in temple ritual, burned daily as part of incense offered to the gods. This dual role, medicine and worship together, reflects how closely healing and religion were connected throughout ancient Egypt. Chapter 22: The Expeditions to Punt. Myrrh and frankincense did not grow within Egypt itself, requiring long, organized trading expeditions to distant lands. The most famous of these journeys, recorded during the reign of Queen Hatshepsut, traveled to a region known as Punt, likely located along the Red Sea coast. Temple reliefs describe ships returning laden with myrrh trees, resin, ivory, and other valued goods. This expedition, though primarily religious and economic in purpose, directly supplied temples with the incense their daily rituals required. Without this steady supply line, the myrrh burned each evening in a healing room like ours would simply not have been available. This connects our quiet, imagined evening to a much larger network of trade stretching across the ancient world. Chapter 23. Kaifi, the Temple Incense. Among the most elaborate substances used in Egyptian temples was kaifi, a complex incense blended from many separate ingredients. Ancient sources describe recipes combining myrrh, juniper, honey, wine, and a variety of other resins and herbs. Preparing kaifi was a lengthy process, sometimes taking several days, requiring careful attention at each stage. It was burned during evening temple rituals, its rich, layered scent considered appropriate for the day's symbolic close. Greek writers who later visited Egypt described kaifi with real fascination, noting its complexity compared to their own incense. Temple priests responsible for its preparation would have needed genuine skill, treating the process almost as its own specialized craft. This elaborate incense reflects the broader Egyptian dedication to sensory detail within religious and medical practice alike. Chapter 24. Oils of almond and sesame. Oils formed an essential part of Egyptian daily life, used in cooking, in ritual, and in medicine alike. Almond oil, extracted from the almond tree, appears in Egyptian cosmetic and medical texts from as early as 2000 BCE. It was valued for its mild, gentle quality, often used to soothe the skin or to carry other, stronger remedies. Sesame oil, another common choice, appears in the Ebers Papyrus as a remedy connected to breathing and general discomfort. Oils were often warmed gently before use, applied slowly by hand to tired muscles or aching joints. Egyptian records suggest that oil was so valuable it was sometimes used as a form of payment for labor. A physician's workspace would likely have included several small jars, each oil suited to a slightly different purpose. This careful use of natural oils formed one of the most consistent threads running through Egyptian medical practice. Chapter 25. Castor oil and pomegranate. Castor oil appears frequently in Egyptian medical texts, recommended for digestive complaints and applied to soothe irritated skin. The Ebers Papyrus describes its use quite specifically, suggesting Egyptian physicians understood its effects with real precision. Pomegranate, both the fruit and its bark, was used as a remedy against intestinal parasites, a common concern along the Nile. This particular remedy has since been studied by modern researchers, who found genuine antiparasitic compounds within pomegranate bark. Egyptian healers combined such remedies with rest and dietary adjustment, treating the whole patient rather than a single isolated symptom. This broad plant knowledge, tested and refined across many generations, formed the practical backbone of everyday temple medicine. Chapter 26: Amulets of Protection. Alongside herbal remedies, ancient Egyptians made frequent use of protective amulets in matters of health. These small objects, carved from stone, faience, or metal, were believed to offer protection from illness and harm. Amulets shaped like the Eye of Horus were especially common, associated with healing and restored well-being. Others bore the image of Sekhmet herself, invoking her power both to cause and to cure disease. Archaeologists have recovered thousands of these small objects from tombs and settlements across Egypt. They were worn on cords around the neck or wrist, kept close to the body at all times. A temple healer may have offered such an amulet alongside a physical remedy, following long-established custom. For the ancient Egyptians, physical medicine and spiritual protection were never entirely separate practices. Chapter 27: Faience, the blue-green craft. Many Egyptian amulets were crafted from faience, a glazed ceramic material prized for its bright blue-green color. This color closely resembled precious turquoise and lapis lazuli, materials associated with life, rebirth, and the waters of the Nile. Faience was made by shaping a paste of crushed quartz, then firing it carefully to develop its distinctive glassy glaze. Workshops producing faience objects existed near many temples, supplying amulets, beads, and small figurines for both religious and medical use. A skilled craftsman could shape remarkably fine detail into these small objects, despite the material's delicate, glass-like nature. An amulet given to a patient by a temple healer may well have come from a workshop just like this, located only a short walk away. Chapter 28: The myth behind Sekhmet's dual nature. Egyptian mythology explains Sekhmet's connection to both plague and healing through a well-known story. According to the myth, the sun god Ra sent Sekhmet to punish humanity, and her anger nearly proved impossible to stop. To calm her, The gods dyed beer red to resemble blood, and she drank it, growing calm and finally falling into a peaceful sleep. When she awoke, her fury had passed, and she became instead a protector, capable of healing what she once threatened. This story explains why her priests treated both the causing and the curing of illness as part of a single, connected duty. Temple festivals honoring Sekhmet often referenced this myth, sometimes involving the ritual drinking of beer in her honor. Historians see in this story a broader Egyptian idea that healing and harm often come from the very same source, held in careful balance. Chapter 29. The Metternich Stela. Among the objects used in Egyptian healing practice, the Metternich Stela remains one of the most striking to survive. Covered in protective spells, particularly against poison and snake bite, it was designed for a very specific ritual use. Worshippers would pour water over its inscribed surface, believing the water absorbed the protective power of the words themselves. This water was then collected and given to the sick or injured person to drink. Similar objects, known as healing stelae or sipi, have been found at various sites across ancient Egypt. This practice reflects a broader Egyptian belief that written words themselves carried real, transferable healing power. A temple healer may well have kept a similar object on hand, ready for exactly this purpose. Chapter 30. Honey, the Ancient Remedy. Honey appears repeatedly throughout Egyptian medical texts, valued for both its taste and its healing properties. The Ebers Papyrus and other papyri describe honey used in wound care, mixed with other ingredients to form a paste. Modern science has confirmed that honey holds natural antibacterial properties, explaining its long documented use. Egyptian beekeeping was well established, with honey collected carefully from hives kept near temples and homes. It was also used to sweeten medicines that might otherwise taste bitter, making them easier for a patient to accept. Combined with herbs such as blue lotus, honey appears in remedies aimed at easing anxiety and restlessness. This same natural remedy, trusted for thousands of years, remains recognized today for many of the same properties. Chapter 31. More plants of the Ebers Papyrus. The Ebers Papyrus lists a remarkable range of plants, each recorded alongside its specific intended use. Onion was recommended to induce perspiration and ease symptoms similar to a common cold. Mint appears frequently, valued for soothing digestion and settling an uneasy stomach. Thyme was recorded as a pain reliever, while coriander was prepared as a tea for urinary discomfort. Fenugreek seeds were used for fever and digestive trouble, and applied topically for skin irritation. Sesame was noted for easing breathing difficulties, complementing its common use as a cooking and massage oil. Juniper appears in remedies for breathing troubles, sometimes heated and inhaled directly by the patient. This wide plant knowledge suggests Egyptian healers drew on a genuinely broad, well-tested natural pharmacy. Many of these same plants remain part of herbal practice today, studied now for the same properties Egyptian healers once recorded by hand. Chapter 32. Aloe, the plant of immortality. Aloe vera, sometimes referred to in Egyptian tradition as the plant of immortality, appears in several surviving medical remedies. Its cooling, soothing gel was applied directly to burns, skin irritation, and minor wounds. Egyptian records suggest aloe was also used internally, in small amounts, to ease digestive discomfort. Modern science has confirmed genuine soothing and mild antibacterial properties within aloe gel, supporting its long-recorded use. Aloe plants likely grew within temple gardens alongside blue lotus and other frequently used medicinal plants. Its continued popularity today, thousands of years later, offers a clear, tangible link between ancient practice and modern herbal medicine. Chapter 33. Garlic and the Prevention of Illness. Garlic held a particularly valued place in Egyptian daily life, used both as food and as medicine. Cloves of garlic were found among the treasures within Tutankhamun's tomb, suggesting real ceremonial and practical importance. Egyptian laborers were reportedly given regular rations of garlic, believed to support strength and general health during demanding physical work. Modern science has since confirmed garlic's genuine antimicrobial properties, lending real support to its ancient reputation. The Ebers Papyrus includes garlic among its remedies for various ailments, including heart and circulatory complaints. A temple healer's stores would very likely have included dried or preserved garlic, alongside the more delicate herbs used for calming remedies. This combination of everyday food and genuine medicine reflects how thoroughly practical Egyptian healing traditions truly were. Chapter 34. The method of placing the hand. Egyptian medical texts describe a diagnostic technique referred to as placing the hand upon the patient. This method appears in both the Ebers and Edwin Smith papyri, used to assess injuries and internal complaints alike. Historians believe this practice combined physical examination with an early awareness of the pulse and its rhythm. Egyptian physicians understood that the heart connected to vessels running throughout the body, an early recognition of circulation. This knowledge likely developed alongside the practice of mummification, which required a detailed, direct familiarity with human anatomy. A patient undergoing this examination would have experienced something recognizably similar to a physical exam performed today. This careful, hands-on method reflects a genuinely observational approach within Egyptian medical practice. Chapter 35: Isis and the Cure for the Sun God's Headache. Egyptian medical texts sometimes wove mythology directly into their recorded remedies. One notable passage in the Ebers Papyrus describes the goddess Isis creating a remedy for a severe headache suffered by the god Ra. This story served a practical purpose, lending divine authority to a remedy meant for ordinary human patients. A healer offering this treatment might have recited the story aloud, connecting the patient's own discomfort to this larger, sacred narrative. Other entries reference different gods, Horus, Thoth, and Shu among them, each invoked for a particular kind of relief. Historians view these entries as evidence that medicine and mythology were never fully separate within Egyptian thought. A remedy that failed to work through herbs alone was still believed capable of working through faith, prayer, and patience combined. In Chapter 36, Thoth, God of Wisdom and Medicine. Thoth, usually shown with the head of an ibis, was closely associated with writing, knowledge, and medicine. Egyptian tradition credited him with recording knowledge that healers later relied upon, including early medical understanding. Some ancient sources describe him as the author of foundational texts later used within the House of Life. Healers invoking Thoth's name in a remedy were connecting their own careful, practical work to this deeper source of wisdom. Alongside Sekhmet, Thoth represents another way Egyptian religion and medicine remained closely, permanently intertwined. This layered mythology gave ordinary healing work a sense of connection to something larger and more permanent than any single treatment. Part 3: The Daily Ritual of the Temple. Chapter 37: The Sacred Pool and Morning Purification. Egyptian temples were commonly built with a sacred pool, used for ritual purification. Before entering the temple for any duty, a priest was expected to wash carefully in this still, clean water. This act was not simply practical. It was considered essential to entering the god's presence properly prepared. Historians studying temple ritual texts describe this purification as one of the very first steps of the daily religious service. A priest might repeat this washing more than once during the day, depending on his particular duties. The pool itself was maintained carefully, its water kept clean through regular attention from temple staff. Lotus flowers often grew at its edges, their presence connecting the pool visually to ideas of purity and rebirth. This quiet, Repeated ritual marked the boundary between the outside world and the temple's sacred space. Chapter 38. The Sacred Lake of Karnak. The temple complex at Karnak, one of ancient Egypt's largest religious sites, included a well-preserved sacred lake. This lake supplied water for temple rituals and helped maintain the surrounding grounds throughout the year. Priests performed purification rites here before major ceremonies, following the same basic principle found in smaller temples across Egypt. Sacred geese, associated with certain temple deities, were sometimes kept near these lakes as living symbols of the divine presence. Archaeologists studying Karnak's lake have found evidence of careful engineering, designed to maintain clean, steady water levels. Smaller temples, including those dedicated to Sekhmet, likely maintained more modest versions of this same basic feature. This shared architectural element, the sacred pool or lake, connected temples of differing size and importance across the whole of Egypt. Chapter 39. Opening the Shrine. Each morning, a small group of priests performed a fixed sequence of rituals before the god's shrine. According to religious texts that survive today, the priest would enter, light a lamp, and open the doors of the shrine itself. He would then recite hymns of praise, followed by the burning of incense before the sacred image. The god's statue was symbolically purified, dressed in fresh linen, and presented with food and drink. Later in the day, a similar ritual took place again, closing the god's presence gently for the evening. Egyptologists studying temple inscriptions have reconstructed this sequence carefully from surviving records. One particularly vivid detail describes the priest leaving the sanctuary walking backward, sweeping away his own footprints with a small broom. This act, symbolic rather than practical, was meant to leave the sacred space undisturbed by human presence. Such details, preserved in ancient texts, offer a remarkably clear window into the temple's daily rhythm. Chapter 40. The Temple Garden. Many Egyptian temples maintained gardens, used both for offerings and for practical, medicinal purposes. Herbs grown here supplied the temple's healers with fresh ingredients throughout much of the year. Blue lotus was often cultivated in temple pools specifically for this purpose. Other plants mentioned in medical papyri, including coriander, fennel, and juniper, would likely have grown in similar gardens. Temple staff maintained these gardens carefully, aware that the health of the community depended partly on their upkeep. Bees were sometimes kept nearby, providing honey used both in offerings and in medicine. This connection between garden, temple, and healing room reflects how closely daily life and religious duty were joined in ancient Egypt. Chapter 41. The Acacia and the Date Palm. Beyond smaller herbs, larger trees held their own place within Egyptian medicine and daily temple life. The acacia tree produced a gum used in the Ebers papyrus as a binding ingredient for various pastes and remedies. Its wood, meanwhile, provided timber for tools, furniture, and construction throughout the temple grounds. Date palms, common throughout Egypt, supplied fruit rich in natural sugars, valued both as food and as a mild, gentle remedy for weakness. Temple gardens likely included several of these date palms, offering shade as well as this steady, useful harvest. Together, these larger trees and the smaller herbs beside them formed a genuinely complete, self-sufficient medicinal garden. Chapter 42. Temple Cats and the Goddess Bastet. Cats held a special, protected status throughout ancient Egyptian society. They were closely associated with Bastet, a goddess who evolved from an earlier, more fierce lioness deity closely linked to Sekhmet. This connection meant that temples devoted to healing and protection often kept cats within their walls. Egyptian law placed real value on cats, with historical records describing serious penalties for harming one. Amulets shaped like cats were common, worn for protection, and according to some records, for luck during childbirth. A temple cat moving quietly through the corridors would not have seemed unusual to those who lived and worked there. Their calm, watchful presence fit naturally within a space already devoted to quiet, careful healing. Chapter 43. The Cat Cemeteries of Bubastes. At Bubastes, the primary cult center of Bastet, archaeologists have discovered vast cemeteries containing hundreds of thousands of cat mummies. Families brought deceased cats here as offerings, believing this act pleased the goddess and carried real religious merit. Some cats were kept and bred specifically for this purpose, reflecting the immense scale of their sacred status. This practice, though focused primarily on Bastet, reflects the same broader reverence for cats found throughout Sekhmet's own temples. Excavations at Bubastes have provided historians with extensive evidence of how central these animals were to Egyptian religious life. A temple cat during our own imagined evening would have lived within this same wide, deeply rooted tradition of feline reverence. Chapter 44. The Kitchen and Daily Offerings. Temples required a steady supply of bread, beer, and other simple foods for daily religious offerings. A kitchen attached to the temple prepared these offerings each morning, following a routine repeated for centuries. Bread was baked in simple clay ovens, its scent likely drifting through nearby courtyards. After being offered symbolically to the temple's god, Food was often shared among the priests and workers themselves. This practice ensured that temple offerings served both a religious and a very practical purpose. Historians studying temple economic records have found detailed accounts of these daily food supplies. Such records reveal a temple that functioned much like a small, self-sustaining community. Chapter 45. Women within the temple. Women held several distinct, recognized roles within Egyptian temple life, beyond their contributions to medicine. Musicians and singers, often organized into formal groups, performed during temple rituals and festivals. Some held the title chantress, a respected position connected to specific gods or goddesses, including Sekhmet herself. Temple textile workshops, responsible for weaving priestly linen, were frequently staffed and sometimes overseen by women. Higher-ranking women occasionally held significant administrative or religious titles, particularly within temples devoted to female deities. This range of roles shows that temple life depended on the contributions of women across many different areas, not medicine alone. Chapter 46. The temple's priestly hierarchy. Egyptian temples operated under a clear, structured hierarchy of religious and administrative roles. A high priest oversaw the temple's overall operation, often holding significant social and even political influence. Lector priests, responsible for reciting sacred texts and incantations, played a central role in both ritual and medical practice. Below them worked a wider staff of wab priests, scribes, craftsmen, and laborers, each with clearly defined daily responsibilities. Many priests served on a rotating basis, spending part of the year in temple service and the rest attending to other work. This structure allowed temples to function continuously while distributing religious duty across a broader section of the community. A healer working within this system operated as one part of a much larger, carefully organized institution. Chapter 47. The lector priest and spoken magic. Among temple staff, the lector priest held particular importance in matters connecting ritual and medicine. His title referred literally to his role reading aloud from sacred papyrus scrolls, reciting spells and formulas with careful precision. Egyptian belief held that correct pronunciation mattered greatly. An incorrectly spoken word could weaken or even undo a spell's intended effect. Lector priests trained extensively in both reading and recitation, treating the spoken word as a genuine skill requiring real discipline. A temple healer preparing a remedy would often have worked alongside a lector priest, combining physical treatment with correctly recited words. This partnership between healer and lector priest reflects, once again, how tightly medicine and religious practice were woven together in ancient Egypt. Chapter 48: The Wealth of the Temples. Egyptian temples were often significant economic institutions, owning farmland, workshops, and considerable stores of grain. Large temples could employ hundreds of people, from priests and healers to farmers, weavers, and craftsmen. Income from temple lands supported daily offerings, staff wages, and the upkeep of buildings and equipment alike. Some of the wealthiest temples rivaled small towns in their overall size and economic activity. This financial stability allowed institutions like the House of Life to continue their careful work of copying and preserving texts, generation after generation. A temple's medical practice, though quiet and modest on any given evening, was ultimately supported by this much larger, well-organized economic structure. Chapter 49: The Weavers of Temple Linen. Linen held deep importance in Egyptian religious life, used for both clothing and ritual purposes. Temples often maintained their own weaving workshops, producing cloth for priestly robes and for wrapping sacred objects. This same fine linen was also used within the healing room, for gently applying oils or dressing minor wounds. Weaving was skilled, patient work, requiring years of practice to produce cloth of consistent quality. Egyptian linen has survived remarkably well in the dry desert climate, allowing modern researchers to study its construction closely. Some of the finest surviving examples come from tombs, though temple records suggest similarly careful work took place daily. This quiet, repetitive craft formed one small but essential part of the temple's daily operation. Chapter 50: Grades of Egyptian Linen. Egyptian linen was produced in several distinct grades, ranging from coarse everyday cloth to remarkably fine, nearly transparent fabric. The finest linen, sometimes called royal linen, was reserved for priests, temple statues, and the wealthiest members of society. This fine cloth required flax fibers spun extremely thin, then woven with a thread count modern textile historians still find impressive. Coarser linen served practical daily purposes, including the wrapping used in basic wound care within the healing room. A temple would likely have kept both grades on hand, matching the cloth to its particular purpose with careful, practical judgment. This attention to material quality reflects the same broader Egyptian value placed on precision and care across nearly every craft. Chapter 51: How Physicians Were Paid. Egyptian physicians, including those serving within temples, were typically paid through a structured barter system. Records describe payment in rations of grain, bread, and beer, the basic staples of the Egyptian diet. Most physicians belonged to the middle class, alongside priests, scribes, and other skilled professionals. A smaller number, particularly those attached directly to the royal court, achieved considerably higher status. This system meant that medical care, though respected, remained closely tied to the practical economy of daily life. A temple healer treating a farmer might reasonably have been paid in a portion of that farmer's own harvest. This exchange reflects a medical practice deeply embedded within the ordinary economic life of the community. Chapter 52. Heka, the power behind the words. Egyptians believed in a divine force called Heka, often translated simply as magic, though its meaning ran deeper than that word suggests. Heka was considered the very energy behind creation itself, the force through which the gods spoke the world into being. Priests trained in temples had special access to written spells and recitations meant to direct this power toward healing. A remedy's spoken words were not considered decoration. They were believed to carry real, active power alongside the physical ingredients. Midwives and healers alike were understood to draw on Heka when performing their work, whether delivering a child or easing a fever. This belief explains why Egyptian medical texts so often combine a practical recipe with a specific, carefully worded recitation. For a temple healer, saying the correct words calmly and completely was every bit as essential as measuring the correct amount of oil. Chapter 53. Disease as imbalance. Ancient Egyptians often understood illness as a form of imbalance, sometimes physical, sometimes spiritual, sometimes both together. Texts describe disease as something that could enter the body, disrupting its natural, healthy order. Restoring this balance required a combination of correct treatment and appropriate ritual, applied together rather than separately. This view helps explain why a single remedy might include both a practical herb and a spoken prayer. Healers were not expected to choose between physical medicine and spiritual practice. Both were considered equally necessary. Modern historians studying this worldview note its surprising coherence, treating a person as a single, connected whole. This understanding shaped nearly every aspect of how illness was diagnosed, discussed, and eventually treated. Chapter 54. Mat, the principle of balance. Central to Egyptian thought was the concept of Mat, representing truth, order, and cosmic balance. Health was closely connected to this same idea. A body in balance was considered a body properly aligned with Ma'at itself. Illness, by contrast, represented a disruption of this natural order, whether caused by physical injury, poor diet, or hostile spiritual forces. A healer's role, understood this way, extended beyond simple treatment into restoring a patient's proper place within a balanced world. This framework gave Egyptian medicine a coherent philosophy, connecting the treatment of a single patient to much larger ideas about order and harmony. Temple healers trained within this worldview approached even minor complaints as part of this same, larger, meaningful pattern. Chapter 55. Making Papyrus. Papyrus, the writing material behind nearly every surviving Egyptian medical text, was made from a tall reed growing along the Nile. Its inner pith was cut into thin strips, laid side by side, then crossed with a second layer at right angles. Pressed together and dried under weight, these layers bonded naturally into a single, smooth writing surface. The finished sheet was then polished carefully, often with a smooth stone, to prepare it for ink. Scribes wrote using a reed brush, dipped in ink made from soot mixed with water and a natural binding agent. This process, repeated many times over, produced the long scrolls used to record everything from temple ritual to detailed medical remedy. Papyrus proved remarkably durable in Egypt's dry climate, which is why so many examples survive even today. Chapter 56. Ink and the Scribe's Palette. Egyptian scribes prepared their own ink using simple, readily available natural materials. Black ink came from soot or charcoal, mixed carefully with water, and a small amount of natural gum as a binder. Red ink, made from ground ochre, was used to highlight important headings or mark the beginning of a new section within a text. A scribe's palette, often a simple rectangular piece of wood, held small wells for each color alongside space for his reed brushes. This same basic palette design remained largely unchanged for thousands of years, found in tombs from many different periods. Copying a lengthy medical papyrus would have required regularly refreshing this ink, a small but constant part of the scribe's careful daily work. Chapter 57. The Papyrus Scribes. Papyrus scrolls, essential to both religious and medical record keeping, were produced and maintained carefully within the temple. Scribes trained for years to master the hieroglyphic and hieratic scripts used in these documents. Medical texts were copied by hand, a slow process requiring both skill and sustained concentration. Some scrolls, including several of the medical papyri that survive today, explicitly describe themselves as copies of older texts. This careful copying ensured that valuable knowledge was preserved even as individual scrolls eventually wore out. A scribe working in the House of Life may have spent years copying a single lengthy medical text. This patient, careful work forms the reason we can still read Egyptian medical knowledge today, thousands of years later. Chapter 58: Dentistry in Ancient Egypt. Dental problems were common in ancient Egypt, largely due to coarse bread containing traces of sand and grit from grinding stones. This constant wear damaged teeth over a lifetime, leading to widespread dental pain among ordinary Egyptians. Hesira, mentioned earlier, held the title chief of dentists, suggesting dentistry was recognized as a distinct profession. Egyptian dentists treated abscesses, performed extractions, and in some cases created simple bridges to replace missing teeth. Archaeologists have found mummies with gold wire used to stabilize loose teeth, evidence of genuine dental intervention. These findings show a level of dental care that remained largely unmatched until many centuries later. Temple healers likely handled straightforward dental complaints alongside their other, broader medical duties. Chapter 59: Anatomical Knowledge from Mummification. The practice of mummification gave ancient Egyptian embalmers direct, repeated experience with human anatomy. Though embalming and medicine were officially separate professions, this shared knowledge likely passed between the two fields over time. Egyptian texts show awareness that the heart connected to vessels extending throughout the entire body. They understood the brain's location and general importance, though its precise function remained only partly understood. Evidence of skull surgery, with clear signs of healing afterward, suggests some patients survived even significant surgical intervention. This practical, observational knowledge, gained gradually over centuries, gave Egyptian medicine a genuinely advanced foundation for its time. Modern historians studying these mummies continue to find new evidence of the sophistication behind Egyptian medical understanding. In Chapter 60, The Heart as the Center of Thought. Unlike modern understanding, ancient Egyptians believed the heart, rather than the brain, held a person's thoughts and emotions. During mummification, the heart was carefully preserved, believed necessary for judgment in the afterlife. The brain, considered far less important, was typically removed and discarded during the same embalming process. This belief shaped medical language throughout Egyptian texts, where the heart is often described as speaking, feeling, or deciding. Despite this misunderstanding of the brain's true role, Egyptian physicians still correctly linked the heart to the body's network of vessels. Historians view this as a fascinating example of a civilization reaching real anatomical insight, even while holding a fundamentally different overall theory. Part 4. Healing the People. At Chapter 61, Who Came to the Temple for Healing? Medical papyri suggest that Egyptian healers treated a wide range of ordinary, everyday complaints. Headaches, digestive troubles, aching joints, and difficulty sleeping appear repeatedly throughout these ancient texts. Most patients were likely ordinary people, farmers, craftsmen, and their families, rather than royalty alone. A visit to the temple healer would have been a normal part of managing everyday health concerns. Historians studying these records note how practical and unglamorous most entries actually are. This suggests that temple medicine served the wider community regularly, not only in rare or serious cases. The presence of so many common remedies indicates a medical system genuinely engaged with daily life. Chapter 62. Treating Pain and Restlessness. Egyptian medical texts describe several approaches to treating general pain and physical restlessness. Warm oil, applied slowly to aching muscles, appears repeatedly as a recommended treatment. The Ebers Papyrus also recommends specific herbal preparations for headache and general bodily discomfort. Massage, though not always described in detail, is implied by references to oil application and gentle handling. These treatments reflect an understanding that physical comfort played a real role in overall health. A patient receiving such treatment would likely have rested afterward, allowing the remedy time to take effect. This patient, practical approach appears consistently across multiple surviving medical texts. Chapter 63. The Value of Rest Itself. Beyond any specific remedy, Egyptian medical texts consistently recommend rest as part of proper treatment. Patients were often advised to remain still, avoid strain, and allow the body time to recover naturally. This advice appears alongside more active treatments, suggesting Egyptian physicians recognized rest as genuinely therapeutic in its own right. A temple's quiet, calm environment would have supported this kind of recovery far better than a noisy, crowded home. This may explain why some patients, particularly those struggling with worry or sleeplessness, chose to remain within temple walls overnight. Rest, understood this way, was not merely the absence of treatment, but an active, valued part of the healing process itself. Chapter 64. Remedies for Sleepless Nights. Difficulty sleeping was a recognized medical concern in ancient Egypt, addressed directly within surviving texts. The Ebers Papyrus recommends poppy, known today as Papaver somniferum, specifically for easing insomnia. Blue lotus preparations were also used for this same purpose, valued for their calming, gentle effect. These remedies were typically taken as a warm drink, prepared slowly in the evening before rest. Modern researchers studying these plants have confirmed properties consistent with their recorded ancient use. A temple healer treating a restless patient would likely have combined a physical remedy with quiet reassurance. This combination of practical medicine and calm, attentive care appears throughout Egyptian medical tradition. Chapter 65: The Poppy Along the Nile. Poppy plants, valued for their calming properties, were cultivated in various regions across the ancient Near East, including parts of Egypt. Egyptian trade networks also brought poppy-derived products from further afield, supplementing whatever was grown locally. The Ebers Papyrus recommends poppy specifically to quiet a crying child, as well as to ease adult sleeplessness. Modern chemists have confirmed that poppy contains compounds with genuine, measurable sedative properties. Egyptian healers would have handled this remedy with particular care, aware of its strength compared to gentler options like blue lotus. This careful, graduated use of remedies, from mild to more potent, reflects a genuinely thoughtful medical approach to treating sleeplessness. Chapter 66: Wound Care and Recovery. The Edwin Smith Papyrus provides detailed instructions for treating wounds, adjusted carefully according to how much time had passed. On the first day, fresh meat was sometimes applied, believed to help close and protect the injury. In the days following, a mixture of honey, grease, and soft plant fiber was applied, then covered with clean linen. This layered approach, changing over time, shows a genuinely thoughtful understanding of how healing naturally progresses. Modern researchers note that honey's antibacterial properties would have offered real, measurable benefit during this recovery process. A temple healer treating an everyday cut or scrape would likely have followed this same basic, well-established sequence. Chapter 67: The Surgical Relief of Kam Ambo. At the Temple of Kam Ambo, a carved relief on an inner wall depicts a striking collection of medical instruments. Scalpels, forceps, scissors, and small spatula are shown in careful detail, alongside containers likely meant for medicine. Two goddesses are shown nearby, seated upon birthing chairs, connecting this display of tools to the care of childbirth as well as surgery. Though this particular temple was completed later than the period we imagine tonight, its imagery reflects a tradition centuries in the making. Egyptologists consider this relief among the clearest visual records of ancient surgical practice anywhere in the ancient world. It suggests that the tools kept within a healing room, however humble, were part of a long, well-established medical tradition. A temple healer of an earlier era very likely used simpler versions of these same basic instruments. Chapter 68. The practice of bone sitting. Priests of Sekhmet were particularly associated with the treatment of broken and injured bones. This specialty connected directly to Sekhmet's dual role as both bringer and healer of physical harm. Egyptian medical texts describe methods for setting broken bones and immobilizing injuries during healing. Linen strips, sometimes stiffened, were used to support an injury while it healed naturally. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, in particular, provides detailed, methodical instructions for treating such injuries. Its careful, structured approach reflects a genuinely clinical understanding of the body's healing process. This specialized knowledge would have been passed carefully from experienced healer to apprentice over many years. Chapter 69. The Edwin Smith Papyrus. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dated to around 1600 BCE, is considered one of the world's oldest surgical texts. It contains 48 case studies, each following the same structured format: examination, diagnosis, treatment, and outlook. Unlike many other Egyptian medical texts, it relies almost entirely on observation rather than magical formulas. Scholars studying the document have noted its genuinely clinical tone, closely resembling how a modern medical case might be recorded. Some cases include an honest note that a particular injury could not be successfully treated, an early example of clear medical prognosis. In fact, the papyrus organizes its cases into 3 clear categories: an ailment I will treat, an ailment I will contend with, and an ailment not to be treated. This 3-part system allowed a physician to communicate honestly with a patient about the likely outcome of their condition. This willingness to record failure alongside success reflects a surprisingly modern, disciplined medical mindset. Historians consider this papyrus strong evidence that Egyptian medicine, at its most advanced, closely resembled early scientific practice. Chapter 70. The Reikhet, Wise Women of the Community. Alongside formally trained physicians, Egyptian communities relied on women known as Reikhet, often translated as knowing ones or wise women. These women specialized in matters closely tied to women's health, childbirth, and the well-being of infants. Though not physicians in the formal, temple-trained sense, they held real, practical knowledge respected throughout their communities. A Reikhet might work alongside a temple healer, or independently, depending on the needs of the particular family involved. Their knowledge, passed down through direct experience rather than written text, likely complemented the more formal medicine practiced within temple walls. This combination of formal and informal healers gave ordinary Egyptian families multiple, overlapping sources of medical support. Chapter 71: Care for Mothers and Children. Egyptian medicine included specific attention to the health of mothers and young children. The Kahun Papyrus, one of the oldest surviving medical texts, focuses specifically on matters of women's health. Remedies addressed pregnancy, childbirth, and the care of infants in their earliest days. Amulets connected to protective deities were commonly used to support a safe pregnancy and delivery. Midwives, working alongside temple healers, held important practical knowledge passed down through experience. This attention to maternal health reflects a broader Egyptian concern with family continuity and community well-being. Historians studying these records find a surprisingly thorough and organized approach to this area of medicine. Chapter 72: Taweret, Protector of Childbirth. Taweret, depicted as an upright hippopotamus, was widely worshipped as a protective goddess during pregnancy and childbirth. Small amulets and household objects bearing her image have been found throughout Egyptian sites, spanning ordinary homes and royal residences alike. Women approaching childbirth commonly kept a Taweret figure nearby, believing her fierce appearance helped ward off harmful forces. Temple healers assisting with matters of childbirth would likely have invoked her protection alongside any practical medical guidance offered. This blending of a protective deity with genuine medical concern reflects the broader Egyptian approach to health we have seen throughout tonight. Her enduring popularity across many centuries speaks to how seriously Egyptian society treated the real dangers surrounding childbirth. Chapter 73: The Kahun Papyrus. The Kahun Papyrus, dated to around 1800 BCE, is the oldest surviving medical text focused specifically on women's health. It contains sections on pregnancy, contraception, and the diagnosis of various gynecological conditions. One recorded method for testing pregnancy involved a woman urinating on grain, watching carefully to see whether it sprouted. Modern researchers have tested this method and found it holds a surprising degree of accuracy compared to random chance. The papyrus also includes remedies intended to ease common discomforts associated with pregnancy. This early, dedicated attention to women's health reflects a broader Egyptian willingness to document even highly specific medical concerns. Its survival allows modern historians a rare, detailed window into an area of ancient medicine often left unrecorded elsewhere. Chapter 74. The reputation of a temple healer. A skilled temple healer would have built a reputation slowly, through consistent, careful treatment over many years. Trust between healer and community likely grew through repeated, successful care rather than any single dramatic event. Egyptian society placed real value on medical knowledge, reflected in the respected titles given to physicians. Tomb inscriptions belonging to physicians often list their titles proudly, suggesting real social standing. A healer's steady, unremarkable daily work formed the true foundation of this respected reputation. This pattern, quiet competence building lasting trust, likely held true across many temples and many centuries. Chapter 75. Titles of Honor. Egyptian physicians held specific, formally recognized titles reflecting their level of skill and responsibility. One such title, Great One of the Tens of Upper and Lower Egypt, indicated a senior physician overseeing others across a wide region. Other titles specified a particular royal connection, such as Physician of the Palace or Physician to the king himself. These titles appear carved carefully into tomb walls, meant to preserve a person's professional achievement for eternity. Historians studying these inscriptions have been able to reconstruct a surprisingly detailed picture of Egypt's medical hierarchy. A priest of Sekhmet working within a regional temple would have held a respected, though perhaps more modest, position within this same wider system. Chapter 76. Egyptian medicine's influence on Greece. Greek physicians, including those who later shaped Western medicine, were well aware of Egyptian medical knowledge. Herodotus wrote admiringly of Egyptian doctors during his travels, describing their organized, specialized approach in real detail. Some historians believe early Greek physicians, including figures associated with Hippocrates, studied Egyptian methods directly. Egyptian understanding of herbs, wound care, and structured diagnosis likely informed Greek medical practice as it developed further. This connection places Egyptian temple medicine at the very beginning of a long tradition later, continued by Greek and Roman physicians. Modern historians increasingly credit Egypt as a genuine foundation stone for medicine, as it developed across the wider ancient world. Chapter 77. Bread, beer, and daily nutrition. Bread and beer formed the foundation of the ordinary Egyptian diet, consumed daily by workers, priests, and physicians alike. Egyptian beer differed considerably from modern versions, thicker, less alcoholic, and rich in nutritional value. Physicians sometimes prescribed specific dietary adjustments alongside herbal remedies, recognizing food's direct role in health. Bread was often fortified with various grains, providing a stable, reliable source of daily nutrition. This dietary foundation, plain and consistent, shaped the general health of the wider Egyptian population. Even temple healers themselves lived on this same basic diet, sharing it with the very community they served. Chapter 78: Herodotus on Egyptian cleanliness. Herodotus, visiting Egypt centuries after the period we imagine tonight, wrote with real admiration about Egyptian hygiene. He described Egyptians as unusually attentive to cleanliness, bathing regularly and wearing freshly laundered linen. Priests, he noted, followed especially strict standards, washing multiple times daily and shaving their entire bodies regularly. Historians believe these practices reflected a genuine, practical understanding that cleanliness supported better health. This attention to hygiene fits naturally alongside the medical knowledge already present within temple healing practice. A temple healer's own careful washing before treating any patient would have followed this same long-established cultural expectation. Chapter 79: Treating Eye Complaints. Eye conditions were extremely common throughout ancient Egypt, largely due to the dry climate, blowing sand, and bright sunlight. Egyptian medical texts devote considerable attention to remedies for irritated, infected, or injured eyes. Kohl, a dark mineral cosmetic worn by many Egyptians, may have offered some genuine protection against sun glare and insects. Physicians specializing entirely in eye treatment appear in Egyptian records, reflecting how widespread these complaints truly were. Remedies included washes prepared from various minerals and plant extracts, applied carefully and repeatedly over several days. Given how common eye problems were, a temple healer would likely have treated them on a fairly regular basis. This specialization reflects a broader Egyptian tendency to divide medical knowledge according to real, observed patient need. Chapter 80: The Festival of Sekhmet. Egyptian temples dedicated to Sekhmet held regular festivals intended to honor and appease her powerful nature. Inscriptions describe these festivals as important occasions, drawing worshippers seeking both protection and continued good health. Wine played a symbolic role in some Sekhmet celebrations, connected to a myth in which the goddess was calmed and pacified. These festivals reinforced the community's ongoing relationship with the temple, beyond the individual visits of daily medical care. Priests would have prepared carefully for these occasions, alongside their regular, ongoing healing duties. Such events remind us that temple life combined steady daily routine with occasional larger, shared community celebration. Part 5. The Temple AT Night and Sacred Sleep. Chapter 81. Closing the Temple Gates. As evening approached, Egyptian temples followed a fixed routine for closing their doors to the outside world. Visitors and workers not required for evening duties would have departed before the gates were finally shut. A smaller group, priests, healers, and certain temple staff, remained inside through the night. The outer courtyards, busy during daylight hours, would have grown quiet fairly quickly once the gates closed. Temple records suggest this transition followed the same basic pattern each evening, repeated for generations. This shift from public daytime activity to a smaller, quieter nighttime presence shaped the temple's daily rhythm. Chapter 82. Guarding the temple at night. Temple complexes employed guards responsible for security throughout the overnight hours. Egyptian records mention watchmen assigned to protect valuable temple property, including stores of grain, oil, and precious ritual objects. These guards would have patrolled the outer walls and courtyards on a fixed, repeated route through the night. Their presence provided reassurance to the smaller group of priests and healers remaining inside the temple after dark. Unlike the priests, whose duties centered on ritual and healing, guards focused purely on the practical safety of the grounds. This division of labor reflects the temple's broader organization, every role, however small, contributing to its overall steady function. Chapter 83. Sweeping away the footprints. One of the most distinctive details preserved in Egyptian temple ritual concerns the priest's final actions each evening. After completing the evening rites, the officiating priest would leave the sanctuary walking backward. As he walked, he used a small broom to sweep away his own footprints from the sand or stone floor. This act, recorded in surviving ritual texts, was understood as leaving the sacred space undisturbed by human presence. Egyptologists view this detail as a clear example of how deeply symbolic Egyptian temple ritual could be. Even a practical action such as sweeping carried real religious meaning within this careful, structured tradition. Chapter 84. The Evening Ritual. The evening ceremony performed before the god's shrine closely mirrored the ritual conducted each morning. Incense was burned once more, its smoke rising slowly through the quiet sanctuary. The god's image was symbolically settled for the night. The shrine doors closed carefully afterward. A final prayer or hymn accompanied this closing, according to surviving temple liturgical texts. This repeated structure, morning and evening mirroring one another, reflects the temple's steady daily rhythm. For the priests involved, this ritual likely became deeply familiar after years of nightly repetition. Chapter 85. The sound of evening hymns. Egyptian temple ritual included hymns sung or recited at fixed points throughout the day and evening. These hymns, preserved in surviving religious texts, praised the gods' power, protection, and continued presence within the temple. A lector priest typically led this recitation, his voice carrying clearly through the stone hallways of the sanctuary. Other priests present would respond at certain points, following a pattern established through years of shared practice. This structured musical quality gave temple ritual a steady, predictable rhythm, familiar to everyone who lived and worked within its walls. For a temple healer finishing his own evening duties nearby, these distant hymns would have marked a familiar, comforting point in the day's closing rhythm. Chapter 86. Dream Incubation and the God Bes. Ancient Egyptians believed that dreams could carry genuine messages from the divine. Some temples supported a practice known today as dream incubation, in which a person slept within the temple hoping for a healing vision. The Chester Beatty Papyrus, dated to around 1350 BCE, describes methods for invoking Bes, a protective household deity, before sleep. Bes was associated with protection, particularly for women and children, and with easing the passage into rest. A person seeking guidance or healing might prepare carefully, then sleep within a designated space inside the temple grounds. Priests sometimes assisted in interpreting whatever the sleeper experienced, connecting the dream to practical guidance or reassurance. This practice reflects a broader Egyptian belief that healing could occur as fully in sleep as in waking treatment. Chapter 87. The Ancient Dream Book. A separate section of the Chester Beatty Papyrus, sometimes called the Dream Book, records interpretations for a wide range of dream images. It lists specific dreams alongside a simple judgment, marked as either favorable or unfavorable for the dreamer. A person troubled by a strange or unsettling dream could consult a temple priest trained in reading this same text. This priest would help place the dream within a wider, more reassuring context, easing anxiety through explanation and calm discussion. Historians view this practice as an early form of psychological reassurance, delivered through religious rather than medical language. For someone struggling with disturbed sleep, this kind of thoughtful, unhurried conversation may have proven as valuable as any herbal remedy. Chapter 88. Imhotep, the physician who became a god. Imhotep, who lived during Egypt's third dynasty, began his life as a royal architect and physician. Over time, his reputation for medical knowledge grew so significant that later generations came to worship him as a god of healing. Temples eventually dedicated to Imhotep became sites where the sick sought healing through sleep and sacred dreams. This practice, similar to later Greek traditions associated with the god Asclepius, shows a long-standing belief in sleep's healing power. Historians consider Imhotep one of the earliest individuals in history to be recognized personally for medical achievement. His transformation from physician to deity reflects how deeply ancient Egyptians valued the practice of healing itself. Chapter 89: The Sanatorium of Dendera. At Dendera, within the temple complex dedicated to the goddess Hathor, archaeologists have identified a structure known today as the sanatorium. This building included sleeping quarters and a connection to sacred water believed capable of curing a wide range of illnesses. Inscriptions describe water poured over statues covered in sacred texts, then collected and offered to the sick as a healing draft. Visitors could remain overnight, hoping for a dream in which the goddess herself might offer guidance toward recovery. Historians studying this structure consider it one of the clearest physical examples of a dedicated ancient healing center. Some scholars describe Dendera's sanatorium as functioning much like an early hospital, combining rest, ritual, and medical attention. A temple devoted to Sekhmet, though smaller in scale, likely offered visitors a similar, if less elaborate, combination of care. Chapter 90: Egypt's earliest hospitals. Some historians describe certain Egyptian temples as functioning much like the world's earliest hospitals. Sanatoriums attached to temples such as those honoring Hathor at Dendera included spaces specifically designed for healing rest. Water channeled through inscribed, healing texts was collected and given to patients, believed to carry the power of the words themselves. Visitors could rest in these spaces for extended periods, cared for by resident priests and healers. This organized, dedicated space for healing predates similar institutions in Greece and Rome by many centuries. Historians studying these sites note genuine architectural planning around the specific needs of resting, recovering patients. This tradition of temple as healing space, sustained for thousands of years, represents one of Egypt's most significant lasting medical contributions. Chapter 91: The Moonlit Courtyard. Once the evening rituals concluded, the temple's courtyards would have settled into genuine stillness. Moonlight, falling across sand and stone, created a very different atmosphere from the temple's busy daytime hours. Priests remaining within the temple walls likely moved quietly during these hours, their duties for the day complete. Temple cats, free to roam these quiet spaces, would have added their own soft, unhurried presence to the night. This peaceful transition from ritual duty to quiet rest formed a natural, expected part of temple life. Chapter 92: Thoth and the Recording of Knowledge. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom and writing, held particular importance for scribes and healers alike. Egyptian tradition credited him with inventing writing itself, and with recording the knowledge that filled the house of life. Physicians sometimes invoked Thoth directly within their remedies, seeking his wisdom alongside more overtly medical deities. Scribes copying medical papyri likely considered their careful work a form of devotion to Thoth, as much as ordinary professional duty. This connection between writing, wisdom, and healing reinforced the temple's broader belief that knowledge itself carried genuine protective power. A healer's respect for his own written texts reflected, in part, this deeper reverence for Thoth and the knowledge he represented. Chapter 93: The Sacred Pool by Night. The temple's sacred pool, so central to morning purification, took on a different character after dark. Moonlight resting across its still surface would have created a calm, reflective scene, quiet and unhurried. Lotus flowers opened during the day close naturally each evening, folding gently until the following morning. This natural rhythm, flowers opening and closing with the sun, closely mirrored the temple's own daily cycle of ritual and rest. Priests passing the pool at night may have paused briefly, drawn to its familiar, calming stillness. Chapter 94: The Nile at Night. Beyond the temple walls, the Nile continued its steady, unchanging flow through the darkness. This same river shaped nearly every aspect of Egyptian life, from agriculture to religion to daily routine. At night, its surface would have reflected moonlight and stars, calm and largely undisturbed. Fishermen and travelers along its banks followed their own quiet nighttime routines, familiar with the river's steady rhythm. For temple and city alike, the Nile represented a constant, reliable presence, unchanged across many centuries. Its slow, patient movement offers a fitting image for the steady, unhurried pace of ancient Egyptian daily life. Chapter 95: Happy Spirit of the Flood. The annual flooding of the Nile was personified by Hapi, a deity associated with abundance and fertility. Egyptians offered thanks to Hapi each year, celebrating the fresh silt and water that made their agriculture possible. Temple hymns describe Hapi in warm, grateful language, crediting him with sustaining the entire population through his yearly gift. This yearly cycle of flooding and recession shaped not only farming, but the broader rhythm of festivals, taxation, and even medical practice. A temple healer's own sense of the passing year would have been marked by this same steady, celebrated natural rhythm. Even at night, the quiet presence of the Nile carried this deeper, well-understood significance for everyone living along its banks. Part 6. The Sleep of the Temple. Chapter 96. How the Ancient Egyptians Understood Sleep. Sleep held real significance within ancient Egyptian belief, connected closely to both health and the divine. Dreams were thought to offer genuine messages, sometimes warnings, sometimes guidance, sometimes simple reassurance. Egyptian texts describe careful preparation before sleep, including prayer, purification, and sometimes the use of calming remedies. A restless mind was treated seriously, addressed through both practical remedy and spiritual practice together. The god Bes, though small and unusual in appearance, was regarded as a genuine protector of sleep, particularly for children and mothers. Small carved figures of Bes have been found near sleeping areas in Egyptian homes, suggesting his protective role was part of ordinary daily life, not only temple ritual. This dual approach reflects a broader Egyptian belief that body and spirit were never truly separate concerns. Modern sleep researchers studying ancient practices note genuine overlap with ideas still discussed today. Rest as essential to overall health. Chapter 97. A Temple Healer's Evening Remedy. Drawing together what medical papyri record, we can reconstruct a plausible evening remedy such a healer might have offered. Blue lotus petals, dried earlier in the season, would be warmed gently within a small amount of oil. A little honey might be added, both for its own gentle properties and to make the mixture easier to accept. This warm mixture would likely have been offered slowly, in small careful sips, similar to how the Ebers Papyrus describes many of its remedies. An amulet, perhaps bearing Sekhmet's own image, might be offered alongside it, following long-established custom. Quiet words, reassuring and unhurried, would very likely have accompanied the entire process, as the Wab priests were trained to combine remedy with calm reassurance. This reconstruction, built from genuine historical sources, offers a plausible, grounded picture of temple healing as it likely occurred. Chapter 98. The Healer's Final Words. Egyptian medical texts occasionally preserve fragments of the reassuring speech. A healer might offer a worried patient. Phrases recorded in various papyri emphasize calm, patience, and confidence in the treatment being given. A healer was trained to speak slowly and to repeat reassurance as many times as a patient needed to hear it. This combination of steady voice and careful remedy reflects the Egyptian belief that calm itself held real medical value. A patient leaving the healing room was expected to feel not only physically treated, but genuinely reassured. This same principle, a calm voice easing a restless mind, remains recognizable in medical practice even now, thousands of years later. Chapter 99: The Last Lamp. Each evening, temple lamps were extinguished one by one as the final rituals concluded. Oil lamps, simple and practical, provided the temple's only artificial light throughout the night. A single lamp may have remained lit near the sanctuary, a small, constant presence through the dark hours. This gradual dimming, room by room, marked the temple's slow transition from active duty into rest. By full night, only the moon and stars would have lit the temple's quiet outer courtyards. This same pattern, careful and unhurried, repeated itself across countless nights, in countless temples throughout ancient Egypt. In Chapter 100, What the Papyri Still Teach Us. Modern medical researchers continue to study Egyptian papyri, finding genuine value alongside historical curiosity. Compounds identified within Blue Lotus continue to be studied for their calming, sleep-supporting properties. Honey's antibacterial qualities, first recorded in the Ebers Papyrus, are now well understood through modern laboratory study. Fenugreek, recommended by Egyptian healers for various ailments, has been studied in modern clinical trials with genuinely promising results. This ongoing dialogue between ancient text and modern science suggests real, lasting value within Egyptian medical tradition. Few ancient medical systems have left behind such a detailed, continuously studied written record. Chapter 101: A Closing Reflection. The priests of Sekhmet and healers like them across ancient Egypt left behind a genuine, lasting legacy. Their careful combination of practical observation and spiritual care shaped medicine for thousands of years afterward. Historians studying this period often note how their methods influenced later Greek and Roman medical traditions. The papyri they left behind, the Ebers, the Edwin Smith, the Kahan, and others, remain genuinely valuable historical sources today. Ordinary people, seeking simple relief from pain, worry, or sleeplessness, found real care within these ancient temple walls. This quiet, patient tradition, healer and patient, herb and prayer, formed a real and lasting part of ancient Egyptian life. Tonight, we have tried to picture that world honestly, drawing only on what historians and archaeologists have actually recovered and recorded. No dramatic event marked this particular evening, only the steady, repeated rhythm of care that shaped countless ordinary nights within these temple walls. As we leave this quiet temple now, let its calm, unhurried rhythm stay gently with you. Let the scent of myrrh and the memory of a slow river beneath a wide, star-filled sky ease you toward rest. Good night.